6.5 Summit is back, and unsurprisingly, the headline here is AI Unleashed and actually getting value for enterprises with AI. The buildup is fun, the tech is fun, but getting ROI out of it is everything. And I can't think of a better person to have this discussion here than Jason Kelley, who is IBM's general manager, managing partner of IBM Consulting. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Well, thanks very much. Good to be here, Pat. It's always good to have a conversation with you, and I know the depth in which you look at and analyze the industry. There's always some subtle pressure to make sure that I'm bringing the best discussion I can to you to and with you.
Yeah, and Jason, my first slide, I'm probably going to do 10 CIO conferences, roundtables, presentations, and the number one bullet on my slide is ROI. And the ROI, you lose track of that ROI and things just start to fall apart. I mean, I love the tech. Okay, infrastructure is cool, APIs are cool, MCP, A to A, it's wonderful, but it's like, what are we getting out of this? You and your team are front and center with clients trying to figure this out. The first thing I noticed, I was at the Sam Altman event 2 years ago out in Seattle. I was thinking, man, this data governance, it's going to be really, really hard. And I'm curious, how do consultants help companies prepare data for AI that, it's hard enough to get the data right in the stovepipes of, let's say, HCM. It's a whole other thing to connect, HCM to PLM to,
Right.
all the different manufacturing systems. How are you helping them?
I'll start with your first bullet that you always have, which is the ROI. And I often hear the first, just so we won't even go to the O and the I. We'll start with the R. R is typically stands for regret. Once someone has started it and not done what you've just said, which is thought about first the objective they want to go to. So I've got to throw this out there because I'm going to come back to the data, but it's the business outcome around AI, not just AI for AI's sake, not just another science experiment, but instead, what is the outcome that the business wants to drive? And I will say that some people also confuse the phrase use case because a use case could be just one off and not a true outcome, which is usually the result of multiple use cases that come together to give a business outcome, such as closing the books faster. And I'm saying it in layman's terms, making sure that everything that shows up on the dock is
Yeah.
exactly what we ordered and is at the right price. So I wanted to say that the outcomes first. Then, as you look back, everything should be by design. And so when we think of looking back, if this is the outcome, then let's do this outcome by design, starting with the most important part of this. Some would argue it's models, but I don't want to get there yet because before we were saying the word models, we were talking about data and data models.
Yes.
And so it is the data. And you called out some of the things that do first come up with regards to data. How are you integrating that data? And these are old challenges to you. We
Yeah.
could hit all the latest technology. So you're on the right point. Is data's at the root of it, the root of all good or evil. And in this case, it's it's starting with data quality. You can never get around that. It's make sure you have data quality that's there. The data integration and data integration could be in those stovepipes.
Yes.
It could be in the form and format in which that data is. It could be structured, unstructured. All these things that people, as we start saying, they go, "Oh yeah, that's right. We've said this before with other capabilities." So I could go down that list and include, I could also, start talking about making sure that the data and privacy, because a lot of people forget about the data privacy, but also security.
Right.
When we start talking about this, security kicks in, and that becomes the challenge. and all the ethics that would flow around using that data for the AI. So now I've covered all that list. So if you just chuck,
Yeah.
but then what I would also have to lean on, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this, is that that data is generated and stored in multiple places, on-prem, off-prem, one
That's
cloud,
right.
multiple clouds. So now you have multiple clouds that could be out there, whether it's AWS, whether it's Microsoft Azure, GCP, Red Hat, and you could have that across. Then just as you said HCM. Well, HCM, is it both Oracle HCM and Success
Yeah.
Factors and Workday and many cases.
Probably in a big company, the answer is yes.
Yes. So you just nailed it. You just saved me naming like a whole bunch of my other partners in this, because they are the cause, creator, and the good part of it. I don't want to call them bad, but this is
Yeah.
why that pulling that data is hard, because now you have to say, how can I work with my legacy investment? And sometimes one of my good friends, Jamet, says PTSD. And my quick shout out to all my veterans. I'm a veteran. And when I say
Yes.
PTSD, people
Yeah.
think it's military. So shout out to all the vets and current serving members. PTSD is that debt that we get from process, from the technology, from the systems, and the data. So that's what and people remember that term PTSD, but that's that debt that comes with all of those different applications. So, short question, long answer, but it's kind of where we're kicking this off here to say, look, there are multiple players in this, and the way to make it happen is first looking at the data in context of the outcome, and then figuring out how you're going to orchestrate this by design to get to that outcome.
Yeah, the fractalization of applications and infrastructure meant the data got fractalized too. So it's a huge challenge. Hey, I want to hit on something that it's funny. I've been in and around IBM going on 35 years. Okay, and architectures were always, because IBM was there, to build things that were
And I
resilient.
should I should jump in and say you've been around IBM for 35 years, and you suffer from Benjamin Button syndrome, because I'm looking at you and it must be good for you. So
I
keep
don't know,
doing
Jason. Our birthdays are within a few months from each other. I've had dinner with you. You look pretty good, my friend. But there's a lot of talk that says, hey, in this new wave that we're looking at, we need an architecture that doesn't just satisfy the next year, okay, to crank out some POCs. We need to scale. And then you hit on it. There's a lot of legacy systems that are involved. And I always like to say technology never dies. It's just additive, right?
That's right. That's
So
yes.
talk to me about, do you help clients plan, strategize, architect an AI architecture that has legs for 5 to X years?
So there's the quick answer is yes, though it's a bit of a loaded question in the way that you've asked me that, because to say an AI architecture, if that's what the one of our clients wants to call it, they can start there. And we
Yeah.
always love to say, look, it's client first with a point of view. So if that's what they're going to call it, we can call it that. However, then my point of view with them would be, you're you're looking at a business capability architecture, because you
Hmm.
just said it. It's going to, had I said it was going to be a services oriented architecture, and then a blockchain architecture, and then it's a AI architecture, is it a different architecture? Well, quite frankly, it is. It has evolved. And so I would start with an open architecture, and that would be one that would allow them to have that flexibility, elasticity, in what they do. Um, and that's why I did purposely use the words by design
Yeah.
earlier. And that's, I always caution, because it's almost, it's not, it's a, the thoughts come to mind, the words that come to mind are not just flexibility and elasticity, but also resilience, and also sustainable. and I mean sustainable in both senses. That when you say sustainable now, they think it's green. It's not just
Yeah.
that. It's sustain. Like, is this something when the current CIO and next CIO are gone? Are you still going to be celebrating the decision that you made, a decade ago? Not saying that that's how often they turn over, but I will shameless. By the way, if I had a bell, I'd ring it and say shameless self promotion. We have a CEO here at IBM, Arvind Krishna, who said, "Hey, we are going to be a hybrid cloud AI company." And when he said it, to his credit, a lot of people is like the dog hearing the siren. You're gonna start turning their heads like, "What is that? What does that mean? Hybrid? That's like a car. Hybrid?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking?" So I do think this thought of building purposely open as well as flexible and elastic. And when I say elastic, I mean also elastic that's for energy consumption, because we know that there's more compute power that's always going to be needed. So can we always turn it on and ratchet it down? And then also finally, this is one of those, there's two things that are often forgotten when we say architecture, because we say architecture, you and I, Pat, our propeller heads start going and we go, oh yeah, okay,
It's
yeah, this is
true.
going to
It's
be sick.
true.
But it's also skills. It's also, are we planning to where our skills are going to be, and making sure that we're skilling towards that architecture. So there is a business architecture and capability architecture, and then in addition to skills, uh, it fits with the sustainable thing. But this change management that always gets kicked in and forgotten about when we start talking about an architecture, because it's like, oh, they're developers, just throw pizza at them and some caffeinated drinks, and they'll crank this out, little AI to help them
Yeah.
change the code. It'll be good. But no, I do think that those are all the things that are by design, based on your question.
Yeah. Hey, I do want to get a little nerdy here,
Okay.
if you don't mind. Um, Models are fundamental to the technology. They're not the most important thing. I think, in IBM, I give credit to IBM. They were the first company to come out and talk about multi-model, right? Multi-vendor models, and it just made sense, right? You don't want one or two companies controlling every model. And how on earth can one company have control over a model that does best on CRM or SAP, or connecting all these together? And oh, by the way, last time I checked, enterprises aren't too thrilled about rolling in 1,000 kilowatt rack to do everything.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to throw the kitchen sink at every single type of workflow here. So what does differentiate um, AI model, a successful AI model, from a production ready AI model, one that can scale, one that can lead to ROI, as opposed to, hey, we had a great pilot, great science project.
Mm-hmm.
What are the characteristics to scale at enterprise level, or I like to say planet scale?
I think that you've helped me answer the question in the way that you've asked it, because it is going beyond a single model. And we do believe, if it's an open model, and we of course open up our Granite model is an open model, and you look at that and you say, well, why? Well, you want to make sure that you have the flexibility. There's also some sense of um, the ethics around being able to have transparency and understand that there is, there's not the bias and the things that you would think about inference, but where's the data coming from, and what are we using the data that we need? And as we started to learn, smaller models for more focused outcomes work
Yes.
with it. You use there's less latency, there's less energy consumption. You get what you want when you need it quick. All of those things that you could say. So I'm saying back to you this thought of multiple models based on the outcome. And if you're planning that outcome correctly, then that will help guide, which model. I do and will continue to repeat myself on this thought of, what are you trying to get? And you said it
Right.
yourself, you know is, are you trying to solve the latency of product shipping in your supply chain?
Yeah,
Are you trying to make sure that you have rich images for your marketing capability? Are you trying to make sure that you have the right and very timely, and right with air quotes around it, and very timely data for customer loyalty? So then you start saying, am I going to use another Copilot? Am I going to use Firefly? Will I tie into Joule? Will I use that with Watson X? What am I doing? So I think, as I said, you asked the question in a way that really points out, is that it starts with understanding that outcome, and then knowing that, okay, I can use multiple models based on what I'm trying to get to.
yeah. The other top 10 list on keeping enterprises from scaling AI as much as they would like to. It's really where it started. It's responsible AI, and this word can mean multiple things to many people. I mean, for some people, it's the model gave me accurate data. Another one says that it doesn't have biases. Another one, there's regulatory scrutiny that, based on certain regions and countries, are different. And I'm
Right.
curious. How do you help clients implement these responsible AI practices through what you're doing in consulting?
So I have the joy of saying that we've been doing this for more than a decade. Um, and sometimes you can get a small smirk when you say, yeah, you started beating Watson, or Watson started beating Jeopardy back
Yeah,
in the day, when you say, okay, well, great, you won in a game show, but it's the game of business. What did you what did you do after that? And I tell you that those learnings that we had way back helped us understand how to use AI responsibly. And we started, I will tell you that back then we started with AI code of ethics. And we said first, other that, that augmented intelligence, artificial intelligence, and we would say augmented often because it's there to augment human intelligence, not to replace it. And that was our first tenet. And our second was that, the data and insights belong to the people or those things that created it. So those company, those entities that created it. And then finally, to make sure that the AI that we were using along with the data um, was transparent and explainable, that it could be questioned. You
right.
could see, so it wasn't black box. So we definitely start with those basics that we have been doing for more than a decade now, and saying that yes, we want to make sure that clients understand what responsible AI means, and it does dial back to where we started with the data, and then progresses to the models, because now as we are thinking and talking models, just what are those guardrails that you want to put in to make sure that you continue to implement and enforce those standards and those values that you started with more than a decade ago. That includes, as you get, the inferences that you're getting out of those models, and where that's coming from based on the data, and the data that you're using to gather the inference from, and how you're training the models. I mean, we keep
Yeah,
going. It's all those. It's really taking what we've done before and advancing that into the current, to your point earlier, the current technology, and staying consistent, because it worked then, and we do believe, as we tell our client, it works now, but you have to start there.
yeah. By the way, good reminder to everybody. AI, in fact, first AI algorithms were done in the 1960s. We were doing AI with analytics, and then we did AI with machine learning, and then now we're doing it with LLM and through machine learning. But throughout that requires it to do it in a responsible manner. Um, Last question here: what is the role that consultants should play um, to help clients anticipate and manage the risk of something going wrong? Because you can put the right ROI architecture, you can have the right data, you can have the most responsible AI practice, but there's going to be corner cases. Things are going to happen. These models, quite frankly, are learning how to make sure they don't get shut down or shut off.
Hmm.
There's vibe coding that is injecting is about the riskiest of code from a security point of view. What role do consultants play in this game?
So I think that the best way to answer is to get rid of the word consultant.
Okay.
Um, and I would say, what role does a partner play? How can you be that partner for your client? Because, and even, we could use the other role. You can say consultant, you can say developer, you could say salesperson. And I think that all of those have, we're predisposed to think of what those roles are. And I want to pull it apart and I just say, look,
Yeah.
if what we talk to our teams about is that if you're going to partner with that client, you're going to tell and not sell. You're going to tell them, what they should be considering. You're going to tell them, just as I've spoken to you, about the design and the considerations. You're going to tell them about their legacy and where they want to go, and you're going to tell them it should
Right.
be the outcome. And so I think it's 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 less, in the moment. I know as you asked the question, we could say, how does that apply to AI? But I have to go back. I think it's even it's simpler than that. It
Yeah.
really is easy to say, but becomes even more complicated to do with all of the moving parts. So I think that driving this thought of disciplined partnership and looking across an agentic ecosystem. And so now I will get to the answer to the questions that I think that agentic ecosystem, when I say it, people think multi agent
Yes.
interaction. And I don't mean just that. I mean, what's behind that? What's the ecosystem behind that, which does include the data sets, that does include the architecture, that does include everything that we have just described. So I'm glad this is you said this is the last question. It pulls in that fact that it is an agentic ecosystem of multiple players, of architectures, of models, of data, and outcomes that we have to drive toward. And that's what we ask our team members to do, is to partner with our clients to make sure that they cover all of that. And that at that point you can build through very trusted communication the outcome for that client.
Yeah, Jason. I hear a lot of companies throwing around the partner moniker. It's where people want to go. I've been in and around kind of IBM long enough to know that it is a reality for you. Some of your customers have been doing business with you for 50 years, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of trust that goes into this. A lot of the core applications are some of the most sensitive and risk tolerant that that are worked on. So I don't view it as a throwaway line, even though everybody
I'm
uses it. I know
I'm
you, and I know
glad
your company.
I'm glad you're saying it so that anyone listening to this going, okay, Jason, that was like you just pull that like, oh, I want to be a partner. And I almost have to say, yeah, it's kind of cliche, but it really isn't. Now, if you want to get really cliche, since you've been around, that we had three simple values, and it was part of a session back when, it was a big deal for everybody to get online and communicate. We called them jams. That was 2003. Someone's going to
Yes.
fact check me, but we said, what are our values? And the one that first one is innovation that matters for our company and for the world. But on this point that you're talking about, it's dedication to every client's success. So that's the
Yeah.
first thing. And then you said it best when you said, what do we do? Well, we have trust and responsibility in all of our relationships. And that's what this partner means. It means that I'm going to partner with my partners that are in there. So when it's a Salesforce, SAP, on Azure, with all of the AI that would come with that, and in Adobe for Firefly, you'd say, yeah, okay, I'm going to partner with them with trust and communication. And then we as IBM would orchestrate that relationship for our client. We would be the trusted partner with our client.
No, I appreciate you saying that. I love that final piece there, Jason. Man, thank you so much. I
Hey, it's
really appreciate it. It's a great session. I'm sure people got a lot out of it. So thank you for your time.
Hey, anytime, Pat. Time flies when I'm with you, so you just give me a call and we'll do it again whenever you're ready. Take care.
Thank you so much. So thanks for joining us here at the Enterprise AI Spotlight for the 6565 Summit. We're here in our 6th year. Pretty excited about that. Stay connected with us on our website, and we're going to have more conversations, more insights coming up. Stick around.